Yes, this is Professor Taj Al-Khazin, Ottawa, Canada. And today is Thursday, the 17th of August, 2023. Today, I am going to address a number of issues relating to South Sudan and with an interconnection to Sudan and the region as well. And I will take them in the order of what I see as priority and needing professional input. On the 7th of August, Honorable McQuay came out from the Council of Ministers and said that the Council of Ministers in its regular meeting on Friday agreed to form a committee to tackle South Sudan position on the issues of the usage of the Nile waters. The step itself is good. And then it goes on that it will set up a technical committee to be headed by the vice president and membership of all the ministries that are concerned in the particular area so that the issue of water is addressed once and for all. Where are the experts? If I'm talking about technical, are the ministers technical? In certain cases, are the undersecretaries technical? This is an issue of regional dimensions. There are 11 countries that are members of the Nile waters. And the issue of the Nile waters and South Sudan goes back to 1904, when the Jungule Canal was envisaged as a colonial project, and today it remains a colonial project. So I beg the President, I beg the Council of Ministers to add that this committee is a political committee. It can be an executive committee, but there is need for a technical committee of professionals, including lawyers, and I mean real capable lawyers, and I will come to that. If you go to the third paragraph of the communique, he said the committee should come up with very clear position on the issue of water to clear the position representing the government of South Sudan on the 1927 Nile Water Usage Agreement signed by countries of the Nile Basin on the usage of the Nile water. There is no agreement that was signed in 1927. It doesn't exist. There was a memorandum of understanding that was signed in 1929, and that was specifically for Sinnar Dam. On the Blue Nile, it has nothing to do with South Sudan. There is a 1959 agreement. That's where the damage actually happened. Also, we don't talk about the Nile waters. We should talk about the White Nile waters, because 86% of the Nile waters comes from Ethiopia. It is only the Sobat, and within the Sobat, it is only the Baro that is contributing. The rest is the Blue Nile. The rest is Adbara. The rest is Gash. We have got nothing to do with that. So you have got to be very specific about these things. And then McQuay said the agreement gave Egypt 85% of water for usage, and Egypt is persuading countries of the Nile to abide by the agreement, but the countries are walking away from the agreement, saying by then they were not independent. That's not correct. That's not correct. 1959, it was only South Sudan that was not independent. Who else was not independent? And South Sudan is different because of this. The Vienna Convention on Succession of States in Respect of Treaties. This was developed in Vienna, 23rd of August, 1978. It entered into force on November 6, 1996. So this is now international law. And I will go into that a little bit later. But let us continue. He went on to the cooperative, not the cooperation framework agreement, the cooperative framework agreement. It is not by East Africa. This is a Nile Basin initiative. It has got nothing, it's not East Africa. That's the danger when someone is talking about issues that he does not understand anything about. And this is an emphasis on the need for professionals to be in charge of these issues. National professionals and international professionals. You are dealing with other countries. You are dealing with treaties. You are dealing with the usage of water. I mean, there are so many agreements in international law. The Egyptians can eat us alive if we do not educate ourselves about international law. They're preparing for that. They know what is going on. They have got the best intelligence in South Sudan. In all the 10 states, there is an office of the Egyptian Ministry of Water and Irrigation in all the 10 states. So let us not assume that we can dance to our own tunes the way we want. We have got to be prepared for those who are waiting for us to guard their interests, even if it's against our interests. What South Sudan needs, I mean, the documents for South Sudan to sign on and ratify the Cooperative Framework Agreement was tendered in 2017. 2017, that is 6 years back. Somebody somewhere is delaying it in Parliament, is delaying it in the Senate, is delaying it in the legislative, God knows. So the fact that this has been dug out, and I did a lot of work on digging it out, quite a lot of work. And I was supported by actually a very good number of honorable women who actually worked on that. So this needs to come out, it needs to be signed, it needs to be ratified by the president and sent to the Nile Basin Initiative. And then let me stop here and I will come back to that. And then Honorable McQuay said, the cabinet listened to a presentation from the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Honorable Lesuba Ledourou, at the National Conference of Federalism. McQuay stressed that the peace agreement says South Sudan shall be a federal system, but did not agree as to which type of federalism it will be. That's very strange. Federalism is federalism. There is political federalism, federal and fiscal with an F, which is money, financial, and fiscal federalism. That's it. That's it. The rest is actually details here and there. So the minister is authorized to search for all possible available federal systems so that he can recommend to the people of South Sudan the best way. He, the federal minister, asked for funds over $600,000, and the funds were approved. However, he noted that after the availability of that amount, then they will fix a date for the conference. There is an organization, an international organization called the Forum of Federations. And it was headed, the first person who headed it was Bob Ray, who is now the permanent representative of Canada to the United Nations. At that time, he was the president and the chair of the Forum of Federations. This is a club of all the federal states in the world. I was his advisor for 3 years. I accompanied him to Juba. Yes, sir. And I accompanied him to Khartoum. And I accompanied his successor to Ethiopia. And we got $1.3 million from Canada, not 600,000, $1.3 million from Canada. And the Forum of Federations established an office in Juba near the Japanese embassy. If people know where that is. And they were there for a couple of years, and then they were frustrated. Nobody was interested. The Constitution is what guides the elements of federalism. And federalism is not about telling people to go and rule themselves. It is much more than that. But fiscal, with an F, fiscal federalism, which is the money, the issue of equalization, taking from the rich states and giving the poorer states. Who takes the taxes? Who takes the funds of production? Starting with the municipality, going to the town, going to the state, going to the federal bodies. So that needs professional input. I hope someone could send me the WhatsApp of the Minister of Federal Affairs. I will see if I can interest the Forum of Federations again to come in as a technical body that is specialized in federalism. All the federal states in the world are members of the Forum of Federations. So we don't need to go any far. This is the internationally accepted, regulated, and established body that gives advice on federalism. And I will see if I can bring them back. Can we get $1.3 million again? I will have to talk to my government here in Canada. And I will start working now to see if I can get a contact with His Excellency the Minister and see what I can do on the issue of federalism on solid grounds before the wrong start and the wrong foot take place. Now let me go back to the issue of the 1959 agreement, and it is 1959 and not 1927. There is no 1927 agreement. This is 24 pages. Honorable McQuay needs to read it. The Minister of Justice needs to read it. The Parliament needs to read it. All the Council of Ministers needs to read it. It deals with the succession of states in respect of treaties. The typical case of South Sudan. The 1959 agreement was signed when South Sudan was part of Sudan. And Sudan is a signatory to the 1959 agreement and was getting 18.5 billion cubic meters of water, while Egypt was getting 53.5 billion cubic meters, and the total was about 85 billion cubic meters. Emperor Haile Selassie objected to that. None of the riverian countries, the other river countries, have ever accepted that. Egypt is in dire need of water. They tried desalination and it failed. And they have been working very hard to drain Bahr al-Ghazal Basin and to drain the Sobat Basin and to revive Jungule Canal to get 4.5 billion cubic meters of water from South Sudan. That will be disastrous for the Sud. It will be disastrous for the rains in Western Equatoria. It will be disastrous for the rains in Northern Uganda. And I am told that President Museveni is very unhappy with that. So we have got allies on this. But what this agreement says is that when a country secedes like South Sudan, they have got to respect the agreements signed by the country, by the mother country before they split away. How strong is that? How will the Egyptians use it? How do we fight it? What is actually in these 24 pages? Does anybody in Cuba know? So when I call for professional input, for intellectual input, for knowledge input, it is not the politicians alone. You cannot do it. You are going to mess up things. I will leave it at that, and I will see what I can do. But I would like you to know that when this was entering into force on 6th of November 1996, the 15 countries required to put it into law were there. Bosnia, Herzegovina, Croatia, Egypt, Ethiopia, Morocco, Iraq, and so on. The 15 required countries. So this is tight. Let me tell you more. Let me tell you more. And anyone who's interested from the politicians and the ministers, contact me and I will give you more information. The full text with the annexes is 66 pages. Regrettably, it is difficult to find. But if somebody contacts me, I can share the full text, including the annexes. The full text is there. You Google it from the United Nations, the 1978 Vienna Convention, it will come out. But the full text with the annexes is difficult to find, and I have it. It is 157, it is 66 pages. The agreement itself is only 24. The full with the annexes is 66 pages. And the Council of Ministers and the committee and the minister will need that. Now, the other thing that we need to be careful about is that 157 countries have signed on this agreement, including Sudan, including Egypt, including all the neighboring states of South Sudan, Ethiopia, Uganda, Kenya, Central African Republic, Sudan, all of them have signed on this agreement. So we have to be extremely careful, and Egypt is also signatory to it. They are one of the first ones who actually signed. So out of 193 countries of the United Nations, 157 countries have signed on this agreement. Again, Sudan, Egypt, Ethiopia, Kenya. Sudan, the person who signed is Sayyid Omar Zaki. Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Central African Republic, and Burundi. Who else? So we cannot actually, this is not an Ugara where everybody wants to come in and jump. No, we can't. We can't. If we are part of the international community, we have got to abide by international law. So we need the Ministry of Justice to be part of this committee. They are probably key in that. We need the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation to be a member of the committee. They are key when it comes to international organizations. This is an issue I don't know with whom I can take it. Honorable McQuay said the vice president. He did not specify which vice president. We have got 4 of them. Which vice president is heading that committee? We need to talk to him to have an intellectual input, a knowledge input, hydrology and hydraulic sciences input. We need to bring in the University of Juba. We need to bring in international experts and national experts, and they are all there, and they are all very competent. And then I want to go to something that I tackled before, and I thought that the president has dealt with it. And that is the issue of Abdulaziz al-Hilu and the Kauda group. When Abdulaziz al-Hilu walked away after 2011, he walked away with his tanks. He went away with his long-range guns and high-caliber guns. And we all know that Abdulaziz al-Hilu was the commander in charge of artillery and tanks in the SPLA. So when South Sudan separated, and the Nuba Mountains and the list of those guys, Yasser Arban and whatever have you, were left out in the cold, Abdulaziz al-Hilu had his guns. Those were SPLA guns, which is now the SSPDF of South Sudan. I wrote to the president, I talked to friends in Cuba, that they should not allow Abdulaziz al-Hilu to stab SAF, to stab the Sudanese army in the back. The president, when he was in WOW, on the record, he said he has convinced him. But what we want is not really convincing. What we want is instructions. I know that Abdulaziz al-Hilu was obstructive when he met with the president. He tried to move here and there, but the president talked him into it, but gently. It didn't work. Abdulaziz al-Hilu did not respect the request of President Salva Kiir and is attacking SAF and is attacking safe places now. He's being annihilated, but Abdulaziz al-Hilu will not, and his dogs will not live for 10 days without the support of South Sudan. He has got his old cronies and his old friends within the old guard of the SPLM, SPLA, and they're trying to help him. The president needs to be aware of that, and the president needs to tell Abdulaziz al-Hilu in no ambiguous terms that you cannot stab SAF in the back. And I warned before that if SAF is pushed, they can shut the valve of passing the oil at Bashir, and that will be catastrophic. I tried my best at that time to ease off the situation, and it seems to have worked. Oil is flowing now. Oil is selling at $82 per barrel now. That is great. Actually, the flow from South Sudan and Sudan is going regularly. It has not been interrupted. It is about 150, 148, 152, around that figure per day, barrels per day. So the government of South Sudan is actually making a lot of money now, and the fee for passage to Sudan is about $20 million per month. It's not a fortune, but it's not a joke. It's quite a bit of money. So everybody is careful that it should go, but don't push SAF with their back to the wall. And I beg of His Excellency the President to call Abdulaziz Al-Hilu. Abdulaziz Al-Hilu has a house in Juba. I know exactly where the house is, and so do many people. So this is not a matter of convincing Mr. President. This is giving Abdulaziz instructions that Al-Hilu, don't stab Saf in the back, otherwise we are going to dry you out. That's it. He can't survive for 10 days, trust me. Right, and I hope that we see results. Khartoum is not without authority. The other issue is a report by the Department of State to the Congress. The report is very worrying. And I alerted one of the good people and a friend in Juba that he needs to take the report to His Excellency the President and make sure that the President reads the report. It is a very worrying report. It is 8 pages, so it is not difficult to read. Report to Congress on South Sudan Policy, Section 6508B of the National Defense Authorization Act 2023, report on United States policy towards South Sudan. Who saw that report? Who read that report? Why is the Department of State writing to the Congress of the United States, the legislature of the United States? They can command, they can impeach the president. And the Department of State is writing to them about the policy. It is a very damning report and a very damaging report. It goes on from page to page to page. And they are, in February, working with partners. We improved oversight mechanisms governing a 114 million paid credit facility for the International Monetary Fund due to shared concerns over failures to abide by public financial management commitments in the R-ARCSS. Right. And that is the agreement on the resolution of the conflict in the Republic of South Sudan. This report needs a panel of experts to see what it contains, to see how to deal with it, to see how to soften it. Right now, this is the report. Right now, this is what the Department of State gave to the Congress. And right now, this is what the Congress has. And if the donor fatigue and compassion fatigue of the United States is weakened, South Sudan will be in trouble. And then the United Nations is also having South Sudan at the target. It says that the head of the UN in Juba sees that what is happening in Sudan should be sounding the alarm for South Sudan. And he said the unity government led by President Salva Kiir and Riek Machar have failed to deliver on the promises made in the peace agreement. And on top of that is to have a constitution. And this was Nicholas Haysom of South Africa who is saying that. Are we taking him seriously? Will a minister come out and insult him? Or will we study the report and the comments and try to deal with them? And then we have the three heads of the United Nations agencies in Juba. And these three heads came to South Sudan for 3 days. This is the FAO, the IFAD, and the World Food Program. And they are all saying that more investment needs to be done in agriculture. They did not issue a report, or I was unable to get the report, but this is the account of what they said in Arabic. It is very worrying. When I read it, I paused for about 15 minutes and had a cup of coffee to be able to continue with my work. Everyone needs to read the report. I mean, these are not a joke. These are not people in Juba. These are the heads of these organizations. And we cannot take it lightly. Right. And a couple of days back, after 4 months of war, humanitarian leaders urged action to end the tragedy in Sudan. That's not South Sudan, this is Sudan. 4 pages of concrete information. 20 organizations signed on the document. All the United Nations organizations dealing with Sudan and all the international NGOs dealing with Sudan, all of them signed on this agreement. It was issued in New York on the 15th of August. And it addressed the people of South Sudan, parties to the conflict, the international community. And this is where I want to elaborate a little bit. Our humanitarian appeals can help some 19 million people in Sudan and neighboring countries, including South Sudan. However, the 2 appeals that have been made are less than 27% funded. So 75% of the funds needed for the neighboring countries and for Sudan have not been donated. Nobody cares. Nobody really cares. There is donor fatigue and there is compassion fatigue, and both Sudan and South Sudan are left to their fate. So we better pull up our trousers and see what we can do on our own. And I think I will stop there. And I hope that whoever is listening to this, be it embassies in Juba, be it ministers in the government, that there will be some response to some of the flags that I have raised. God bless you and God bless South Sudan.